Sometimes in life, tonight I just want to start with a story. I was, a few months ago, CNN ran a documentary on modern slavery. I'm sure most of you would have seen it. Modern slavery. Did anybody see it here? It was a long series. They repeated it a few times. And they had an undercover reporter to pose as somebody who wanted to travel from Africa to Europe. Are you remembering now? Good. Now, the interest, I got interested because the journey they were starting was from a city that I know in Edo State. That got me interested. And as the journey, the path of the journey would take them through Kano, from Kano to Libya, and from Libya to Europe. But most of them got stuck in Libya, and they were sold as chicken for slavery. You all know that. But that's not the part that troubled me most. The part that troubled me most, that as the reporter was boarding the bus at Kano, or the bus from Edo State to Kano, they were asking them for their materials, the things they needed to travel with, you know, the contents of their journey, the things that were requirements for their journey. And one of the requirements for that journey, guess what was what? Condoms. They went to the woman and said, "Do you have your condom?" Which means that they were telling them that in the course of this journey, you will be raped, not that you might be raped. Because if it became one of the items you had to hold, it was something that would be necessary in the course of the journey. You would assume that anybody would turn back at that time. But people were producing their requirements for the journey because they wanted a better life, but they did not know how. My point tonight is that when you don't know how to get a better life, you try nonsense. So we had a community of people that the men became armed robbers and the women became prostitutes. Let me tell you what was strange. In that particular community where they took off from, it was a Christian community. So they started their journey with many nights of prayer vigils. And each of them will line up, and it was documented, they will line up for blessings from their pastor. Why? Because people want to succeed. And they yet do not know how God designed things to work. And that's why tonight, as a purpose-driven person, you must know how God designed things to work. You must. You are wasting your time. If you pray from now till tomorrow, if you don't know how God designed things to work, you will not succeed. Everybody wants to succeed. There's no human being on earth that doesn't want success. It's a general desire of every human being. The question is, people don't know how to succeed. Or people don't know the advantages that God has given us to succeed. What is success? Success is a relative definition. And I was saying to you, because what God gives you to succeed differs from one person to another. So there's a simple definition for success. Success is the achievement of something attempted. Is that simple enough, right? So if you don't attempt anything, you cannot say you have succeeded, yes or no. Good. And like I said yesterday, if you took something home yesterday, this is what you must have taken home. God does not give any of us what? A finished product. Everything that God gives us in life, he gave us a responsibility to finish it, to improve it. Now, because he does not give us a finished product, that's an established fact, he also does not give us, of course, our challenges are not the same. Our challenges are not the same. That's why some people are brought up with a golden spoon and some people are brought up with a silver spoon. Some people have sweet wives, some people have crazy wives. Some people have nice husbands, some people have mad husbands. But they are all what? Our projects. So success, according to God, is defined by your ability to handle the hand you have been dealt. Because the hands we are dealt are different, right? It is the way you handle the hand you have been dealt that determines if you are successful. Now, one thing that is common to everybody say common. One thing that is common to everybody is that God gave us a different gift. He gave us something that will help us succeed. And that's what the Bible says in Proverbs 8:16. It says, a man's gift makes way for him. God gave us something that will make all of us succeed. What is that thing? God created a tool that will help every human being, so every creature, not even human beings. Everything he created, he gave them something to make them succeed. I call it your defense. Everybody say your defense. I can't hear you. Your defense. For instance, when a lion roars in the forest, everybody shivers without even seeing, just, oh. Why? Because the roar is the lion's defense. God gave elephants a big body. So what an elephant needs to do when he shows up is just roll around with his big body, and people will take off. Are you with me? The eagle does not have a roar. It doesn't roar. The eagle does not have a big body, but the eagle can soar. So when eagle comes into a problem or he wants to take an advantage, it does what? It flies high. How about the cheetah? The cheetah doesn't roar. The cheetah is not big like the elephant. The cheetah doesn't soar like the eagle. But the cheetah can run fast. So the defense of the cheetah is what? Speed. Every creature that God created, he gave them one advantage, one defense. So what is man's defense? What is man's advantage? Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 12 says, for wisdom is a what? Defense. And money is a defense. But the excellence of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to those who have it. You will have wisdom. Amen. I can't hear your amen. Amen. He says in Proverbs 4:7 that wisdom is the principal thing. It is the most important thing that we have. Wisdom is man's advantage. Wisdom is our defense. Wisdom is your tool to succeed. Before you pray for anything, pray for wisdom. It is one prayer I have prayed before I met Christ, that God make me wiser than the next man. I'm not kidding. Wisdom is so unique that when you have it, when you have wisdom, the things that are looking complicated to other people will look easy to you. That's why God gave us a large brain. Wisdom is our tool. When you take doctors that are here, you know that in relative ratio, from body size, the man's brain relative ratio is the largest. Why? Because wisdom is our defense. Unless you know how things work, you will have no advantage in life. Unless you know how things work, you will just follow people and think that only by traveling to Europe or whatever that you can succeed. Whenever you lose your advantage, which is the wisdom that God has given you, you become a servant. You become less than God intended for you. And that's why wisdom is a principle. Let's take Nigeria, for instance. Let's take our country. So at least some of us are from Nigeria here, yes? Good. Nigeria is blessed with what? Crude oil. Let's just hold on to crude oil. But because we don't know how things work, we are in a state of disarray. Let me tell you what they do. Those who know how things work collect our crude oil at $70 a barrel, and they sell it back to us at $200 a barrel. Let me put that in numbers for you. Nigeria produces about 2.5 billion barrels of oil a day. 2.5 million barrels of it. If you calculate the difference between 270, we are giving up $325 million every single day because we don't know how things work. We give it out. $325 million every single day. That's not all we lose. Let me tell you another thing. Every day we flare gas. The amount of gas we flare every day is about $1 billion. Every year is about $1 billion. Every year. Just burn it away. Something that you can convert to do something else. But we're not the only country in Africa. We're not the only country in Africa. I'm sure you all know the story of Zambia. Is there anybody that doesn't know the story of Zambia here? Everybody knows because it was all over the papers. But I'll tell you, in the year 2000, the president of Zambia, what's his name? Frederick Chilumba. He declared Zambia a Christian nation. It was one of the few nations in all over the world that actually declared Zambia a Christian nation. But because they don't know how things work, the greatest asset of Zambia is their copper mine, yes? They gave it out for auction. They were looking for a partner to buy, and they gave it out for auction, and they wanted to sell it for $400 million or something. They eventually sold it to an Indian company for $25 million. And they were partners. Maybe they had about 2% in that company. That partner did not declare any profit for 15 years until one of their MDs mistakenly went to India, and was boasting that they were making $500 million per year, and they had $1 billion in assets. That was when there was an uproar. But you know what pained me most? They bought that thing for $25 million. But in 3 months, they had made $75 million in profit. So they used $75 million that their own money was what they used to pay. That's what happens when you don't know what? How things work. I pray that your children will not waste your inheritance. You will not waste your inheritance. You can work, and work. If you have children that doesn't know how things work, they will squander it in 1 week. But that will not be your portion. Why? Because wisdom is your greatest asset. You must develop it. You must know how things work. God will not make furnitures. He will only provide trees for us. And no matter how much you pray, trees will not miraculously become furnitures. You can bounce your head on the wall till tomorrow. Nothing. Every human being must understand their advantages and their limitations. Every human being. People tell me, why don't you get worried? Because your congregation is very, and I'm not kidding. I was called to pastor Nigerians. That is the hand that God has dealt me. So when somebody comes and says, oh, how do you deal with these people that are difficult? I said, that is my portion in life. And I have to know how to manage my portion in life. Nobody frazzles me. I used to be troubled by drama in the beginning. Now I just smile at you. You can do drama till tomorrow. It is my portion. And the moment I knew it is my portion, I don't get frazzled. You have to know your advantages and your limitations. And then you walk around those things so that you can be successful. Amen? So what do you need to know? Let me tell you a few things. We still have a long way to go. I don't know how I'm going to finish that, but I'll tell you as much as I can. Number one thing you must know is that God provided every one of us with an accelerator. He provided us with something that will enhance our pace. Because most of us do not know how things work, we are moving. Most people are moving, but they are moving slower than God intended for them. And one man that achieved extreme success was Solomon. And he used something that is called partnership. Partnership is the accelerator we're talking about. When Solomon talks about partnership, he talks about two things. He calls them counselors or counsel. That's what he calls them. But let me define a partner for you. A partner or counselor is someone who can provide you with needed insight, advice, wisdom, or practical help to achieve a specific project or goal. Now, let me quickly differentiate for you between a partner and technically, you are going too fast for me, so you are distracting me. You are always on the next slide before I even get there. It's very distracting, okay? Now, let me differentiate between a partner and a counselor. When you meditate on the word of God, God becomes what? Your counselor. That's why the Bible says in Joshua 1:8 that you shall meditate on the word and you will have good success. But God does not become your partner until you do what the word says. You get the difference? When you read the Bible, like most of us do, you have gotten counsel from God. But God is not yet your partner until you do what the book says. It's like the wisest and the richest man that lived on earth by the Bible was Solomon, right? So when you read the book of Ecclesiastes and the book of Proverbs, Solomon becomes what? Your counselor. But when you do what the book says, he becomes your partner. Are we clear on this? The problem is this, that when we are in trouble, it's the only time we go for counseling. Or when we come to a point in our life where we have tried everything and it's not working, then we go for counseling. And that's why Psalm 1 verse 1 clearly differentiates between the godly man and the ungodly man. That simple Bible verse, it says that the ungodly man, when the ungodly man gets a project or a venture, he just starts to move. He just starts immediately. Then when he runs into a problem, he stops. He stands. And then when he's in big trouble, then he sits down for counsel. It's in that order. But the godly man does the reverse. The godly man will take, when he gets a venture or a project, he will first of all sit down for counsel. And then when he understands what he's about to do, he gets up. And then when he's totally committed to what he's done, he starts to work. So it's the reverse. Constantly the reverse. The ungodly man walks, sits, stands, and then sits. But the godly man sits down first for counsel before he gets up and then before he starts to pursue his project. That is the outstanding difference between the two of them. Every purpose-driven person, no matter how much of an expert you are you with me tonight? No matter how much of an expert you are, you must always seek another perspective before you venture. It does not matter. You must always seek another venture. Why? Because the Bible says in Proverbs 15 verse 2, it says, without counsel, plans go awry. There's nothing you know that you don't need another opinion before you start to execute it. 70% of new businesses fail within a year. And so does 50% of marriages. But statistics show that when they go for counsel, that number reduces by 66% when they go for counsel. If you start any venture in life without first seeking counsel, you will lose speed. Let me tell you something. Everybody learns in life. Everybody learns. We learn in two ways. You can learn through a mentor, or you can learn through your mistakes. But one way or the other, you will learn. The difference is that if you learn through your mistakes, you suffer pain, and you are slower. You repeat things. You will eventually get to where you're going, but it may take you twice the number of time to get there. That is why the accelerator is necessary. Anybody that is venturing into anything that doesn't have the counsel of somebody else, you may get there, but you get there slowly. And that is what we are missing out. Now, I want you to understand something. Not all your counselors, not everybody you partner with needs to be physically with you. When you read a book and you do what the book says, you have gotten what? A partner from the book. So you don't have to, it's better to counsel across the table because then you can discuss it and you can understand what they are saying. But without counsel, you run into big trouble. There are so many disadvantages or advantages of having a partner. Number one, you reduce your failure, like I said. You reduce your failure. Proverbs 11 verse 14 says, where there is no counsel, the people fall. Number two, you stand a better chance of finishing what you start. Most people start, but they don't finish because they started without a counselor or without a partner. Proverbs 20 verse 18, it says plans are established by counsel. Every plan that you have is a war. If you don't wage your war with somebody else, you are bound to fail, or you are likely to fail. Amen? Someone has your back when you are weak, when you have a partner. Someone is there to get your back. There's somebody there that is caring for you. What else happens? What are the advantages? You are likely to win battles that you would ordinarily would have lost when you have a partner. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verse 12. I'm trying to rush. It says, though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him. When you have a partner, you minimize your financial losses. Proverbs 13 verse 18. Poverty and shame will come to him who disdains correction. Amen? Look, I will tell you, like I told you yesterday, I have lost so much money because I'm a risk taker by nature. Risk taker by nature. But looking back, I would have even lost much more if I didn't understand this concept of partnership and counseling. The least you can do is discuss with your spouse. That's the least you can do. At least sit down with your spouse and get another perspective. That is why you are called what? Partners. Someone that listens to no one will definitely lose money. That's what Solomon said. Even if you are moving fast today, I don't know who I'm talking to. Even if you are moving fast today, you will move faster if you have a counselor. If you have a partner, you will move faster. That means by yourself, you have wisdom. But double your wisdom and you will see how faster you will move. It is critical to know that whoever you approach for partnership can make you succeed or be destroyed. So let's quickly look at the case of Rehoboam as our study. 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 14. The people approached Rehoboam and said, come and become our king. And because Rehoboam has been listening to his father, his father was Solomon, so he knew that counseling was essential, yes? He knew that counseling was an essential requirement. What did he do? So he said, wait, give me some time. Let me go and get some counsel. Proverbs 11, verse 14 says, he was doing the right thing. Where there's no counsel, the people fall. So the people, he said, very simple. He decided to go and ask two people for counsel. Number one, his friends, right? And then number two, the elders, which was a smart thing for him to do. But the people had very little request. The request was very simple. Lessen our burden. Your father had 700 wives and 300 concubines. His expenses were too much. So he was taxing us too much. Just diminish that a little bit, and we'll be fine with you. Let's fast forward the story. He went to his friends, and he decided that his friend's advice was a better advice. And because of that error, he lost 10 tribes of Israel. Now, that's why I'm trying to tell you that who you partner is very, very important. Number one person, don't partner someone who is your carbon copy. Don't partner somebody who is your carbon copy. The advantage of partnership is only realized if you partner somebody who is adding to you. If I know all about A, and I go and get somebody who knows everything about A, I'm not adding anything to myself. But if you get somebody who knows B, you are partnering with somebody who is adding something to you. You must assess your strengths and your weaknesses and look for a partner with somebody that complements you. Rehoboam made a big mistake. He was partnering with people who were identical with him. 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 8. And that was why he made a mistake. Let me add a quick addition to this so that you don't confuse my statement tonight. This principle is not applicable in marriage. It is only in marriage that partnership concept, that idea that somebody must not be like you, it is only in marriage that it does not work. Are you clear on that? Because in marriage, you are supposed to look more alike. It's good for you to complement yourself, but you are better in marriage with somebody who is like you, or who is more like you than less like you. I want you to just add that so you don't get a mistake. Number two, don't partner with someone without the relevant track records. Don't just choose a partner who doesn't have the right records. It's like taking marriage counseling from somebody who is divorced 12 times. Or you want to learn about wealth. Somebody is teaching you 10 ways to get rich and he doesn't have a car. So when you are learning, you must learn something from somebody who has the track record to teach you. Proverbs 29 verse 19 says, putting confidence in an unreliable person in times of trouble is like chewing with a broken tooth. Number three, don't partner with people whose only interest in partnership is what they can benefit from you. That was another mistake that Rehoboam made. He was partnering with his friends who were his buddies. The richer he was, the better he would share night outs with them. So they were bound to benefit from his overtaxing of the people, and they were selfish in their counsel. Proverbs called them a thief. Proverbs 29 verse 24, whoever is a partner of a thief hates his own life. Look for partners who share your vision. Also look for partners who do not think they are above the law. Proverbs 28 verse 6. What are we looking at tonight? What are we looking at tonight? How things work. How God intended things to work. Why is it important that you make use of the wisdom from God? The second reason why it is important is that you need wisdom to negotiate. And in life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. I want you to understand this. That's why wisdom is so critical. You need wisdom because you are going to, every stage of your life is a negotiation. Your being to here tonight is a negotiation. Because you had a choice. You are trying to develop something that will help you be a better person. There are three things that are important when you negotiate. Three very important things. Number one is your perspective. Your perspective is the way you look at things, the way you see things. It's your view of life. The way you view life, that's your perspective. Where you sit determines what you see. As I'm standing here today, I can see some views that you cannot see looking at me. So the fact that you are looking at something from a perspective gives you the understanding that there are different angles to things. Perspective is so crucial in life. What you see determines how you negotiate. If you can see more, you can negotiate better. So your perspective in life is so crucial to the way you negotiate. Even though Esau and Jacob were born on the same day by the same woman, because they had different professions, their perspective to life was different. The way an engineer will look at something is different from the way an historian will look at something. Your profession also determines your perspective. The way a hunter thinks and the way a shepherd thinks are two different things. Hunters are instant. They kill and they eat and they forget about it. Shepherds nurture. They take something from a baby and they preserve it for a long time to become old. So the perspective of both of them are different. The way they look at life is different. And that is why your perspective is very, very important. Number two thing that's important to negotiation is your spirituality. I'm not going to spend time on this because I've already told you earlier that the godly man and the ungodly man thinks what? Differently. So your spirituality will determine how you will negotiate. If you sit with the scornful, you will only see what the scornful can see. And then number three thing that will determine your negotiation skills is your maturity. Adults and children think differently. The way an adult thinks is so different. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11, it says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. What the Bible is saying here is this. A child doesn't think before they talk. A child just talks. And then when they commit a blunder, they will now understand that what I said was not good. And then they will now think about what they have said. Do you get what I'm saying? A child just talks. And I'm not saying a child is chronological. A child could be a 50-year-old man or a 60-year-old person. But the way a child thinks is different from the way an adult thinks. When you see a child, when you see somebody that just talks before they think, they are children. But it's different from an adult. An adult will first of all think. He will understand what he wants to say before he talks. That's a clear difference. So maturity also determines how you negotiate. And those perspectives are very important. Those three things will influence the way you negotiate. Now, the next question you want to know is that, how does this negotiation really affect my life? Let me tell you something. I have seen people that were born poor negotiate a rich life. I have seen people that were born rich end up being poor because of the way they were negotiating. I had a friend when I was doing my youth service. This gentleman was born into the peak, what they call somebody was born into the peak of poverty. He said to me, we did our youth corps together in Port Harcourt in 1980. He said to me, after we were leaving Port Harcourt, the day we were leaving Port Harcourt, he confessed to me who he was. He now told me his story. He said when he was in Medilag, he's a doctor. He said when he was in Medilag, he was so poor that his mother comes to him once a month with a bag of gari and tinko. And that is all they can afford to give him. That's all. He says what he now does in medical school is that he will look at people like me, that their father gave them car in university, and he will become their friend. I said that was how he spotted me at the youth corps camp. He said when he saw me, I said, this is my man. He said what he will now do is that he will carry his bag of Tinko and Gary, put it in his room. Medical school, 5 years. He will now make friends with people like us who have cars in college. He will now come to me and say, hey, Doge, can I have your car? He will go and do kabu kabu. And then he will come back. That is the only cash he lived with. Throughout his 5 years, that's how he survived. By the time I left him in Port Harcourt, the day we were going, when he was confessing to me how he negotiates life, he said, when I saw you at the camp, and I saw the way I was swinging my head, I said, he just went after me. He now told me on confession, I'm not kidding, I was his best man when he got married. He told me I was living at that time in Ikoyi on Queen's Drive, McQueen Road, corner of Queen's Drive. He said, down my road, his father is a gate man. The same road. When he came to my house after youth corps, I was crying, he was crying, my father was crying. But the truth is that this guy negotiated himself such that by the time we were leaving for that court, he already had a clinic. By the time he moved to Lagos, he had one of the biggest clinics. He was poor, but he negotiated what? A better life. And I've seen people who are born into wealth end up on drugs and nothing. I have seen women who had no children end up dying with children all around them. I've seen people who had 7, 8 children, they died alone. Nobody came to their burial, even their own children. It is what you negotiate. Are you with me? Are you with me? So how do you negotiate? I just wanted to get you to understand that you need to understand how to negotiate. It is important. It's one of the greatest skills you can have in life. You can change your circumstances if you know how to negotiate. How do you negotiate? Number one, value what you have. The only thing you have to negotiate with is what you have. Are you with me? So during any negotiation, if you devalue what you have, you tilt the negotiation against yourself. You know how they negotiate in those days. I don't know whether you guys are streetwise. But when you want to sell something, the person that wants to buy from you will first of all spoil what you have. Is that how they do it? So that the value of what you have is less. But you know what people do? People devalue themselves. And they go to a negotiation table. And when they get to the negotiation table, they are now they're negotiating with less. During a negotiation, the value of what you get is determined by what value of what you have. That was what happened to Jacob. Jacob said something very, very strange and random to Esau. It was very random. How would you be talking to your brother in Genesis 25, verse 31, and the first thing he said is that, sell me your birthright? Who talks like that? Who says things like that? Sell me your birthright. And I can tell you, you know why? At some time in the house, Esau must have devalued his birthright. He must have been going around the house and saying, what is this firstborn self? Not knowing that the first Jewish born has everything. He must have been saying, what is this firstborn? And Jacob must have been listening that this guy doesn't value what he has. So the moment he had an opportunity, he went for what he doesn't value. Are you with me? If any negotiation is tilted against you, you must first of all look at what you are valuing. If you value what you have less, you end up with less. Valuation precedes preservation. Whatever you value, you preserve. That is why when a woman has costume jewelry, they will put it on the table anyhow. It's costume jewelry. But when they have real gold, they will put it. Because whatever you value, you preserve. It is important that you understand that is the way life with. If a devil wants to destroy a marriage, the first thing he does is he starts to make the couple have less and less value for themselves. The moment he can get them to have less and less value for themselves, it is easy to negotiate for their marriage. Very easy. That is why a foolish woman will go and tell her friend that my husband is messing up. But her friend will keep quiet. Do you think her husband is not messing up too? It's because she has value for her own. You don't have value for your own. That's why I tell couples, treat yourself. That's why I can't lose weight. I've tried so much, but my wife spoils me so much. She sets table as if I'm a king. Different portion. I'll be saying, Kilode. Treat yourself as kings and queens. Because the moment you extra value yourself, it is very difficult for anybody to negotiate for you. Because you already like what you have. Are you with me? Are you with me? We tend to take what we have had for a long time for granted. That's the character of man. We tend to do that. We take our friends for granted because they've been there forever. We take our family for granted. That's why your wife will give you counsel, you will not listen. Then one woman with two left legs will give you counsel, you will listen. Because you've seen everything about her. You take the members of the church, you see people around there. There are a bunch of people that are extremely smart, whiz kids in your church, in this place. You'll go and get a consultant because he's white. You take your pastor for granted. And whatever you take for granted has limited effect on you. It cannot influence you. The Bible says in Mark chapter 6, verse 25, that Jesus Christ could not. I want to understand that word. The Bible says he could not. That means he wanted to help them, but he could not. Because they had devalued him, he could not, even when he wanted. That's the King of Kings. Number 2, don't negotiate under pressure. Things are not usually as bad as you make yourself believe. When Esau was negotiating, it's obvious that he was hungry and he was tired. There's no doubt about that. But he exaggerated his needs. He said in Genesis 25, verse 32, he says, look, I'm about to die. Would he have died one day fasting? There are people who will look at themselves and say, God, if you don't give me a husband this year, I'm leaving this church. You exaggerate your problem. And then your problem becomes even unsolvable to you. Was he going to die? When you exaggerate your needs, you tilt the negotiation against yourself. A desperate person seeking a quick solution usually makes an unintelligent and uninformed decision. Because you are desperate. You have told yourself you are desperate. Never make a crucial decision when you are emotionally or spiritually low. Never make a decision when you are angry. Never make a decision when you know that at that particular time you are not fully equipped to make a decision. People have married in desperation somebody they know is wrong for them. They know. I have seen people in counseling that I told them that if you tell me to join you, I will join you, but I don't think you are right. In counseling, because my counseling is extensive. And they will say, And I will let them go. 1 year, 2 years, they're divorced. It's out of desperation. Number 3, don't empower the person you are negotiating with. A lot of times we empower the person we are negotiating with. Whoever has what you want has what? Has power over you. I think I said that yesterday. Whoever has what you want has power over you. When you want what somebody else has, you are empowering them. For instance, we want to do a trade. I have a Lexus, you have a Range Rover. And I came to you and now saying, that Lexus is the best. I start enhancing what you have. I'm empowering you in the negotiation. Are you with me? It's the reason why, look, let me tell you something. There is no person that is poor by themselves. The reason why you feel poor is because you are looking at somebody else's rich. God has given all of us something. But when you exaggerate your desire, when you think you want something that belongs to somebody else, you are empowering that person over you. If you control your desire, people and things will have less control over you. I say this a lot. And for those of you who are teenagers, you will understand it. When I was in school, I was very popular. I was too popular. I was a very bad boy. Because my parents were comfortable, so I had everything, even from high school. I used to tell people that I wonder how stupid people can be. Because they want to attach themselves to you, they want to relate to you. You'll be sending them on errands. Your own classmates. Your own classmates. Go. And because they want to belong to you. They want to hang around you. I'm not kidding. When I was in Unilag, when I collect my money, my pocket money, on the first or second day, I buy shoe, shirt, and I look good. And for the rest 28 days, women feed me. They feed me from their own father's food. It is stupidity to want what somebody else has. Because it diminishes your power, it makes you irrelevant. Are you with me? That was what happened in Genesis 25, verse 33. Esau gave up what he had because he wanted what Jacob had for a moment. It was the same thing that happened to the Zambians and their copper mine. Esau nations empower their negotiator, and they end up getting less simply because they don't know how things work. Number 4. Always in any negotiation, remember that the future is more valuable. The future is always worth more. You see, like I said earlier, the way a hunter and a shepherd thinks are different. Because a hunter is an instant man. He wants it now. He wants to kill it now. He wants to eat it now. He doesn't think very far. And so he values what he has for now, but he doesn't have a projection. But you must always, always value the future. And that's why I said very clearly yesterday, and Pastor repeated it, there is nothing that God has given you that he has finished. It is the way you treat what you have that makes it valuable. Genesis 25, verse 33. Jacob was buying the future. He said to him, today, sell me your birthright. The birthright at that time had no meaning, but it had a future value. The future is always worth much more than you pay for it today. Why? Because the future is cheap. But now is what? Expensive. Now is expensive. If you buy a piece of real estate now in a wooded area, uninhabited, just wait. The value will go up. Single sisters. If you see a potential man today, maybe he's still taking Uber or buses, but you look at him and you see that this man has potentials, you better buy him now. Because if you wait until the day he brings his Lexus or Range Rover to car, he's already expensive. I'm telling you. You know, Because I do some business in Nigeria, I appreciate the value of the way people just come into government. I tell people that if you are a friend of a man before he becomes a governor, you have bought him cheap. But if you wait until he becomes a governor, you're now sending your cards. If you are nice to people when they have nothing, you get them cheap before they become famous. Amen? A cooked meal is expensive. Go and ask Esau. A cooked meal. When you want somebody that's already made, you are going to pay through your nose for it. And that's why you must negotiate buying the future. I know my time is up, but I want to leave you with a word tonight. It does not matter where you are now. If you will do two things, if you will pray that God will give you wisdom, and you will use that wisdom to make the right choices, which is negotiation, I can bet you, by the time I see you next year, or in 2 years' time, your life will be different. Let us rise on our feet.